and welcome to Pod Strangely Warmed. I'm Daniel Hawkins, your host today, and we are continuing today in a series of conversations built around spiritual practices aimed at forming our faith and shaping our life. As we journey in this time leading up to and after Pentecost, we remember that the Holy Spirit is a gift from God and can help shape and form our lives each day. And over the course of the history of the church, has helped form day-to-day practices that root us and ground us in the faith. If you've been with us on the journey so far, you know that we've examined what it means to pray. We've examined what it can mean to pray the scriptures, to be in community together. And today we're launching into something powerful and new, something that really can encounter us in the midst of every day. The Examen Prayer. And to help us on this journey, we have our amazing co-hosts for this entire season on Pod Strangely Warm, Pastor Melissa and Pastor Kristin. Thank you for being here today. I'm feeling a little left out without a facial hair accessory.
You've got facial hair accessory. You just don't have a...
We do not have facial hair.
We do not have
that. And if we do, we will excuse ourselves. Be back after a waxing.
Take a moment for ourselves. But now that we've examined our appearance...
Fair. Yes.
Should we examine our spiritual selves? That was as cheesy as I could make that.
It's a 8.5 out of 10.
Okay.
So not as the king of cheesy transitions. It's not quite a 10, but it's an 8.5. So
I will say I was a little disappointed. You started by talking about how we examined prayer, and I thought, ooh, he's going to close with, and today we're just examining.
Right. Well, you know. We can recut that here in a minute if we want to. So, no, but examine is our spiritual practice for today, right? And in some levels, it's just exactly what it sounds like, right? It's an intentional time that often comes at the end of our day, right? Where we look back over the day that we've had and ask ourselves a series of questions. And kind of depending on who we talk to about examine, sometimes those questions vary, right? Mm-hmm. Where did we honor God today? Or what are we thankful for that happened today? Where was God present and that we noticed? Or where was God present that we didn't notice? What are some of the questions that you guys ask yourself at the end of a day when practicing examine?
Oh, I almost always ask myself where I felt near to God and when did I feel far from God?
Okay.
You know, where are those moments where I knew, man, this is sacred, this is divine, God is with me. And where are those moments where I looked around and just went, all right.
Yeah.
Where are you at?
Yeah.
What's going on
Anytime
here?
now.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I mean, my two are very similar in the same thread that y'all's questions are. And I'm trying to remember John Wesley's phrasing, because John Wesley's phrasing always makes it sound so awkward on that second one of, where have you drawn near to God? But like, where was God not present, as though God wasn't there, which isn't what he was trying to say, but he was trying to say, helping us examine where we missed God in the day. So I always find that question for myself. That's the one that I think early in my practices of self-examine, I wanted to skip past of but really if you talk about the self-examine part, that's probably the more important piece of it, is noticing where I felt distant from God or where I missed God in the midst of the day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What's the way Wesley says it? Because this is the one I used to avoid. Do I have any sins I need to confess, known or unknown?
Ooh,
and
right.
I'm like, well, Lord, if I don't know them.
Yeah, if they're unknown, then sure.
I'm very
blanket
sorry.
Coverage.
Right.
Forgive me.
Or is the invitation to reveal the things that are unknown?
Do I need to sit in this discomfort of what did I do or not do today?
Yeah.
And the answer is probably for a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's part of the goal of the examine, right?
Yeah.
Well, and I think it invites us in examining to not just have moments of thankfulness, not just to help us see where God was alive, but it helps us be people who live, kind of what Paul said on Mars Hill, right? In God we live, move, and exist, right? That kind of understanding that the Spirit is active and at work all around us all the time, and is our awareness tuned to that, right? That question of not only where did I find God, but where was God present, but I didn't see it in the moment, is the one that eats at me sometimes. But it also is an incredible tool for helping me see more fully in future days, right? It's working the muscle, right? And so when you find yourself in a similar situation again, a similar moment again, we're more likely to receive it as a gift from God and receive that moment of presence in a interesting and profound way.
Yeah.
There's a movie that I love that I think like gives this example the best. It's called About Time. Have either of you seen it before?
I don't think I have.
Oh, put it on your to watch list. It's got Rachel McAdams is the like love interest of he plays one of the Weasley brothers. Anyways, doesn't really
This
matter.
is not helping me.
I know. I'm just gonna keep moving on.
Rupert
Anyway,
Grint, that's the only one I know.
Gleason. Donald.
Oh, Donald?
Yeah. The
Donald
younger
Gleason?
Yeah. So he's the main character. So anyways, in the movie he learns that when he comes of a certain age that the men in his family can all time travel, but they can only time travel within their own lifetime. So they can only go back so far. But then there become important moments throughout their life that would be drastically changed if they travel back ahead of like before that happens, such as the birth of a child. You could change the outcome of that child. So in this moment where he knows that even when his dad passed away in like everyone else's timeline, it wasn't as painful for him in that moment because he still kept to get traveling back to go. That was poor grammar, but whatever. To see his dad over and over again. And then there came the point where he realized I can no longer travel back. And so it's his last moment with his dad. And he asks his dad, like, what did you use this gift for? And his dad's like, well, mostly to read more good books. And he said to relive every day. But the only thing he changed in each day was he was just more present in it. So the first time he lived it, he just lived it how he would live it. But the second time he tried to find that like spark of joy in every single moment, no matter how frustrating or, inconveniencing it might be. And I thought like, what a perfect example of what the self-examen prayer is trying to teach us is that, and eventually, because the dad says, eventually I stopped traveling altogether because I just lived the day the first time the way I would have lived it the second time. And so I think that's exactly what self-examen does for us, is it helps us live just the most present with God that we could possibly be. Not that we're not going to slip up, but, that it draws us closer and closer to that idea to where we just live life and we look back and say, yeah, that's how I wanted to notice God. Not that there weren't hard or frustrating or just downright inconvenient moments, but that whatever came your way, you embraced it with grace and kept moving.
Well, and those questions become questions that are ever present with you, right?
Yeah.
So it's no longer jarring to the spirit at the end of the day, or jarring to the spirit if someone comes alongside you and asks, where are you seeing God in this?
Yeah.
Like you're there, you're thinking, you've been practicing being aware of when you feel near to God and when you feel distant from God. And so that pattern is there and it exists. And so you're existing kind of in that divine flow, so to speak. Yeah. Right. And you recognize patterns more easily. And for me, I've been practicing the examen with my church, right? I've just become convicted that spiritual practice is one of the spaces that we as pastors talk about from the pulpit, but sometimes we just get caught up and we fail to really live into it with our congregations. And so I'm trying to like take a practice a year and really focus. And so this year it's the examen. So every meeting, how did we honor God in this? I had trustee meeting on Monday night and we're talking about a parking lot. How did we honor God talking about a parking lot? And it helps us to sit back and go, these are God honoring moments. Yeah. Even when it feels like the work we're doing is so earthy,
it helps cultivate that power to see, eyes to see and ears to hear, right? Yeah. Beginning on Easter Sunday and every Sunday since, at the end of worship, I've handed out at each service a dozen confetti Easter eggs with the idea that in life there are these moments of resurrection, right? These encounters of God where joy just breaks through and presence is known in a powerful way if we have eyes to see them and ears to hear them. And they're like the joy of a confetti egg. Have you seen a child crack one over somebody's head? It is an incredible joy. I gave them to the entire youth group the other day when we announced that our youth director is been commissioned, is getting appointed, and will be leaving us, but we're celebrating his journey. And like 14 people cracked Easter eggs on his head at the same time. It was incredible joy and delight for everybody except for Luis, our custodian. God bless him. But that and to see just over the last 5 weeks, right, of intentional practice in the church with something as goofy as confetti Easter eggs, right? The way in which people will come and instead of saying good sermon preacher at the end of will have little 30-second moments, 90-second moments where they tell me, I saw this moment of delight this week that I wasn't going to see otherwise. I saw this moment of connection to God this week that I don't know that I would have seen otherwise. And that gift of Examen is a gift of intentionality to open our eyes and to look. Because I don't know about you, often in the midst of the busyness of the world, I can get blinders to like only what is in front of me is what I see, right? And what this is inviting us is to kind of open up our eyes, but also open up our hearts as we do that.
I love that it's like the confetti Easter eggs almost become these like mini moments of Ebenezer's being built because it becomes like this sticky imagery that you can look back to. And like, Ebenezer is one of those words that sometimes.
Here I praise my Ebenezer.
We sing it. But do we know what it means? That, it was this like.
No is the answer for most of us.
Right. But it was this moment where.
And when we do see one, what do we go? Ooh, look. Pile of rocks.
Right. Because that's what it is. It's uncut, like by man hands. It's just a bunch of natural stones that are stacked. And it's meant to say and signal, I saw God there. Yeah. So I think Examen is just such a great way to like notice God. And you mentioned, Daniel, in the opening about that, most traditionally, I would say this practice gets done at the end of a day, kind of in review. I had someone challenge me once, and I don't remember who because it was a long time ago, to practice it first thing in the mornings and reviewing the day before.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And the thing that I found so interesting is that what sticks out after a night's worth of sleep. And like typically those are the places that are trying to speak the loudest to you, whether to say, you really notice God and the beauty of this moment, or to say, this moment is really under my skin. So maybe I need some divine, life in it, an invitation to it. And so I did that for a season. And I think that's, a fun thing. If maybe you've engaged with this practice before and done it as a nightly thing, maybe try doing it in the morning just to see what you notice and what changes.
Well, and I think the beauty of it, right, is in Examen, you're asking these open-ended questions, right? Yeah. So it's not just how did I see God or how near was I? And you're asking these open-ended questions and you are intentionally drawing your attention to something, some aspect, right? A perfectly good Examen question can be in the spirit of joy and delight your church is practicing, right?
Right.
Where is joy being cultivated in my life today?
Yeah.
And where am I depriving myself of joy? Right? Those are good questions to ask. Those are good Examen questions. And so when I intentionally give my attention to something, right, I am developing a love and a deeper appreciation and a deeper relationship of where I am with this, whatever it is I'm asking about or focusing my attention on. And so I go deeper and I realize where God is at work, drawing me deeper, right? And that invitation that sometimes feels so blurry. Where is God inviting me to? This question we ask ourselves, what's God's will for my life?
Right.
Like just kind of falls to the back burner because I realize I'm living in it moment by moment as I examine it. And those questions begin to haunt us at the beginning of the day and at the midday and after the meeting and then at the close of the day. And it just becomes a rhythm that we're in.
Have y'all ever experienced, as you were new in this process, right, new engaging this, kind of feelings of worry about guilt or shame attached to, man, I missed God in that? I mean, we've made kind of light and how it can help us grow in our eyes to see and ears to hear, but But so often, I mean, we've talked about it in silence last week, right? And how often, we can feel guilty or what about when we wander in the midst of silence. In this practice of Examen, what would you say to those of us who are launching in either for the first time or for the first time in a while, who may go, you know what, I'm not sure if I saw God today, or I'm not sure if, God showed up in these 3 ways that I can see after the fact, but I just wholly missed in the moment, and I may have missed it and been a jerk to somebody, or, like that processing of sometimes awareness can lead to it's not the intent, right? But to moments of kind of guilt or shame or
the shame spiral, right?
Yeah.
The shame spiral. So I am the queen of the shame spiral. Because
that's not what you want to be the queen of.
That's not what I want to be the queen of.
Although we don't want to start shame about the shame spiral. This is
and now I'm having an existential shame spiral.
Right.
No, and the reason for that is I have a personality that sometimes fails to separate my failure from my character, right? Yep. Right. I totalize. The mistake is me. Yeah. And so when I'm in that moment of, okay, God, I really messed this up today. I am intentional and I require it of myself every single time. And so if this is you, I would invite you to require this of yourself too. When you want to beat yourself up over what you've missed or what you've messed up, because we're human, the question on the end of that is, how is God offering me grace? How am I being offered grace? Yeah. And how can I offer myself grace too?
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. I find it so valuable that, when I lightly joked about it, that like, oh yeah, I just skipped past it. Like I really did. I just avoided it. And so being willing to engage in these practices and spend time in them is what can also help deepen that level of faith, that willingness to, it's not going to always be easy. I love Teresa of Avila. She has this great imagery for how we tend to our souls. And I think it applies to so many spiritual practices. And it's when we first go to tend to our soul, if we imagine it like a garden, then the garden's probably overgrown with weeds. There's probably a lot of dead things. And our only resource in that moment is to go to the well and draw one bucket up by one bucket up. And you know what? That is an arm workout. That's very little water, so there's not a lot of change at first, but the more that we do it, the stronger that we get, the further that we can water. But also what we develop in the midst of that is we start to notice that, there's a cistern that is built up a reservoir that we can start to use, but the cistern can still go dry. But then as we continue to work on it, we notice that there was always this living river that was passing by our garden, and we can start to draw and cut the channels to where it just automatically feeds and waters and tends the garden of our soul. So the more that we engage in this work, the easier it becomes over time. But the river can have a lapse in time. The cistern can go dry. Sometimes we have to go back. We'll move between all of these over and over again. But she also had a final one, and that's the only one that we have absolutely no control of, which is when it rains. And that's God's grace upon us. So I would say, if this work's feeling really hard, if answering that question or feeling shame for, well, I didn't notice God at all today, or I noticed a lot of where God was not today, or I wasn't paying attention to God today, to see that is you're doing the hard work. You're doing the hard work of going to the well. And over time, and in that subtle, slow way, you won't even necessarily notice it until one day you go, oh, it was a lot easier than it was months ago. Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing. Yeah.
That is a beautiful invitation and a promise in a profound way, right? Because I think so many of us will do, as you said, what was the word you used to say, where like our successes or our failures, we like internalize as a part of our character. What phrase did you use there?
I don't know. I think I said I was the failure, or the mistake is me. The mistake is not me. Yeah. Something like that.
The totalization.
Yes, I did say totalization.
Okay, that was the word that I couldn't come to, because that's something that we're all prone to do from time to time, right? Both in good and in bad, right? I'm an Enneagram 3. We've talked about Enneagram a couple of times. The chief sin of an Enneagram 3 is to totalize their successes, right? So that, look, yes, what was that main character energy the other day, right? Yep. And in those moments, you know, you lose out on the gift of the community around you, the gift that God has given you in the midst. Like totalization on either end is imperfect and no good. And the flip side of the hey side is that totalization is still in effect. So you introduced me a couple of years ago to Scott the Painter on Instagram, right? And his
still love him.
Visio Divina, which we actually aren't talking about right now, but those visual prayers, right? We've talked about praying the scriptures last week. Yeah. Praying images where we encounter and examine and say, what is God speaking to me through this? I've got 3 of his images on my wall in my office that live there all the time. And one of them is a picture of a Ford Bronco, right? With like this huge crack in the windshield. And the simple prayer underneath it is, God, may I remember that the first thing my eye sees is not the totality, right? Because when we look at the Ford Bronco, we see, it doesn't matter, no matter who you are. It's not a Ford Bronco. It's not officially sponsored or anything like that. But it's a drawn Ford Bronco. But the first thing we see is the crack in the windshield, right? And so may our brokenness not be the thing that defines us, whether it's in response to our examen or any space where we're tempted to totalitize of kind of our character, our heart, and our outcomes, right? The results of our lives. So we're more than any specific moment. We're more than any specific decision or choice along the way, good or bad.
Yep.
And so I'm interested to hear how, Kristin, you began to let us into this a little bit, how you've experienced examen. We've spent a lot of time talking about it personally, right? Like as individuals. How have you seen that experienced in more collective communities, right? Whether it's in a church or in a small group or in a Sunday school class or just a tight-knit group of soul friends, right? How have you guys experienced this, or have you heard others experience it in a more communal environment? And what gift might it bring in that kind of space too?
Yeah, I think it, for me, what I've noticed in our church is it's deepened our discipleship. It's deepened our intentionality with the work that we do. Yeah. It's really easy to kind of get in the hullabaloo of things and we got to get going. But when we know we're stopping at the end of it and we will be asking ourselves how the work we've done honors God or how God is inviting us forward, we are okay taking that work a little more slowly, not to paralysis, but to intentionality. And so at the end of a meeting, when we say, how is it that we've honored God? What we hear in the community, right, is someone might pop up and say, you know what, I heard us trust God in deeper ways today, right? Yeah. Or, you know what, I heard us hear God's invitation to move forward on something we've been scared to do for a long time. Yeah. Right. And then when we talk about what is the invitation forward, now we move from the invitation is to keep praying to, well, we think the invitation is to be wise with what we have. Right. Yeah. And so these questions and these thoughts and the work that we do becomes so much deeper and more intentional. And at the same time, our relationships are deepening. Because we are more than a committee getting together to do work. We are our own little covenant group in that time.
Yeah, because there's trust required to truly, I can see where you as the leader of the committee might ask the question, but to truly engage that, right? To be open and willing to name where, because sometimes we have insecurity over naming where we've seen God or where we've felt God at work, right? We don't want to be the crazy religious person, right? Or at least...
Or opposite of that, I don't want to be the completely disconnected person. I don't want to be the one that says something silly, right? And so do I just do the Sunday school thing? Jesus.
Yeah. But that trust, I'd imagine, took a little time to build, right? Because I love trustees. Building. I've been working with trustees for 20 years now, right? Because senior pastors that I worked for in the past didn't want to deal with trustees. And so... but that's not the natural state of affairs in that community, right? But how powerful is it when those making those highly logistic-oriented decisions, highly administrative-oriented decisions, we always talk about it being a ministry, but you're giving us an invitation into how do we embody that and how do we help that become a ministry, not just what's the best price on insurance this year, right? Or what do we need to have in this policy, right?
Right. Yeah. And well, and those finance questions truly become about stewardship, you know, so much less about, you know, ticking off all the bills and raising budgets and lowering budgets. Like, what is the best way to steward what we have? Yeah. You know, what is the most missionally driven way? What is the space that God's inviting us forward? And so we enter that. And I'm only in my first year with this church, right? Yeah. But what I've noticed in that conversation is now we're entering these budget conversations even with an eye toward, it might mean that where we've given a lot of our cash flow in the past, we pull that back and we move it over here because this is where the invitation is. Yeah. Right. It gives you a more dynamic way of viewing your church and a more dynamic way of viewing, honestly, your life. Yeah. Right. I mean, we're talking about doing this in community, but personally and in community, what we realize is we're caught up in an ebb and flow. And how are we moving with that?
Well, and what I hear you saying applies both communally and internally, right? To how do I move beyond my default preferences, right? How do I order my life beyond what makes Daniel Hawkins happy, right? Or order the church beyond this is my ministry, right? Not me speaking individually here, but like individually within the church, we all have pieces and pockets that we're most passionate about. And we'd love to see the most funding to choose the stewardship conversation, right, to go to the thing we're passionate about. But if you have engaged in a collective conversations, it becomes less about how do I make sure my thing gets its money, right? And more about where is God inviting us and how do we resource to that? And that is a powerful budgetary conversation because budgets are a place where we often go to our corners and come out swinging, right? And so how do we shift beyond that? When we think about the community piece of this, I know you've led churches in Wesley class meetings a number of times over the years. I've asked you to do it and you've done it on your own. And, but those questions of, you know, how is it with your soul, right? And that strikes me as a bit of the communal examen process going on at the same time.
And one of the things I love when we start to engage in that way is watching how people will hesitantly at first engage with it. But really the ones who oftentimes get it, you know, are the ones who go, oh, there was something worth taking home and trying on my own, right? So they find that rhythm, that one question that they want to ask themselves again, or even throw out to their own small group or this kind of space over here. And then it's, you know, it's all about that shifting, that transforming the way that we view and see the world, because it is this reminder to kind of step aside, that we're not the ones that as Christians, that all the glory be to me. It's instead, you know, all the glory be to God. So it's this reminder in our day-to-day activities, whether administrative or whether for the church or in our, you know, what others would call quote unquote secular, which I think that's part of it is that we have so compartmentalized our lives that there is the sacred and there's the secular, instead of the sacred is in everything. Do we have the eyes to see it? And so when we start practicing it within our churches and inviting people to carry it home, what oftentimes we see is that diminishing of those compartmentalized walls, to where we can start to notice that, oh, sacred was in the drop-off line for school with me, or the sacred was there in the grocery aisle and the person just smiled at me passing by, you know, and that was it. But noticing.
You mean everything is spiritual is not just like an hour and a half long Rob Bell talk?
Well, it is that too.
Okay. But it's also a truth of our reality that Examen helps us encounter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, it almost kind of takes away the notion of anything being secular, right? Everything's sacred.
Everything is.
Everything is sacred. Even that moment that I lost it was sacred, because now there's room for grace.
Yeah.
Right? Now there's room for grace.
Thanks be to God. Yeah. Well, speaking of that, can you lead us in the experience of Examen so that we might have an encounter with this as we reflect? I mean, I know we're kind of in the middle of the day and we haven't talked about how do we encounter this in the middle of the day in a podcast studio, but those kind of questions just to kind of get people stirring a little bit.
Well, sure.
Lead us in a little bit of that.
Sure. How many questions do you think we want?
3.
We like 3?
Yeah.
3.
I like 3.
Yeah,
Okay.
Trinity's a good number.
It is.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
then I would invite you just to first get present
Mm.
wherever we are. So ground yourself, become aware of your body exactly where it is, the floor beneath you, the seat beneath you. And since we're in the middle of the day, maybe our first question is, how have I started this day with my own intention being driven toward the divine? Where has God met me this morning? How is God inviting me forward to complete the day's work in a way that is honoring to both God and those around me? May the gift of the answers or the gift of the mystery draw you nearer. Amen.
Amen. As we go forth today, may those last words ring true for you. May the gift of the answers you received or the mystery you've been invited into go with you as you go forth into whatever the rest of this day brings. I'm Daniel Hawkins, and for Pastor Melissa and Pastor Kristin, we thank you for joining us today on Pod Strangely Warmed. And we pray that today, in its own small way, has been a gift from God to you through 3 imperfect vessels. We will see you again next time as we continue to look at how we can encounter God through the practices of our faith. Until then, we'll see you soon.
Twilight Zone.
Okay.
That's what I'm hearing.
Okay. Yeah.